Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to Oxygen for the Soul. This week's parasha is Parashat Mikess, and it is a continuation of last week's Torah reading, where we learned about Yosef being sold by his brothers down to Egypt, and he ends up in the house of someone by the name of Potiphar, and Potiphar's wife, she seduces Yosef and tries to have an extramarital affair with him, and Yosef resists this attempt and is ultimately sent to jail for his resistance. Okay, he ends up in a prison for quite some time, and in this week's parasha, the story begins with Yosef in Egypt, and the parasha itself begins in a very, very fascinating way. Parasha begins like this: V'yihi miketz shnatayim yamim. Okay, it came to pass at the end of the 2 years, Uparo cholem, and he is dreaming. Pharaoh is having a dream, v'hinei omed al hayaor, and he is standing by the Nile River. So you have this interesting introduction over here where Yosef is, there's no mention of Yosef. We just know it's the end of 2 years. We know we're talking about 2 years since Yosef had spoken with the Sar HaMashkim, that is the chief butler who was in jail, imprisoned with him, and the Sar HaOfed, the chief baker. The baker, we know they both had dreams. The baker was put to death. The Sar HaMashke, the butler, survives, and he's around. This is 2 years later. Okay, let's just pause for a second. He miketz. Miketz always means at the end of something tragic. Now let's just take a double take here for a minute. Yosef is put into jail, okay? He was put into jail, ultimately, if you could trace back how this whole thing started, was because of dreams. He doesn't have one dream, he has 2 dreams. He has 2 dreams, and his brothers say, you, my friend, are insane. You're a danger to our family. You deserve mitah, you deserve death. We are going to execute you and get rid of you. So what ends up happening is they do it. They pull him away, they throw him into a pit, they get rid of him, and now he's in jail. He's in his prison cell. Okay, so move on. He's in his jail cell. He's sold first as a slave. He's sold into bondage as a slave. As a slave, he's sold, and then he ends up in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife tries to seduce him, then he's thrown into jail. He's there for 14 years. Now, Yosef never gives up hope on his dreams. Think about that for a minute. You have these dreams in your youth. He was an 18-year-old, 17-year-old boy. Okay, was very naive. He has these dreams. His brothers, his own flesh and blood, betray him, sell him. They sell him into slavery. He ends up in a foreign land, in a foreign country, with these foreigners. He's sold on the slave block. Some family purchases him, and the wife is totally attracted to him, and she tries to seduce him. And he says no. Now, think about what position Yosef was in, okay? His family gave up on him, okay? His dreams weren't coming true. This woman, Potiphar's wife, she was a model, gorgeous, okay, like gorgeous. And he could have easily started a life with her. No one would have known, who cares? He's done, he's in Egypt, he's a stranger in a strange land. He could have easily just said, you know what, Potiphar's got money, I'll drug him. Okay, the mistress of the house will become the heir of everything, and I'll live a comfy life, knowing that I'm good. I'll leave out my days in Egypt, in the Nile. I'll get myself a nice boat. I'll travel the sea. It'll be nice and comfortable. I got the nice sun. I got the water. I got the slaves. I have it all figured out. He could just take over right there. End of story. He could have his happily ever after. But that's not Yosef. Yosef instead chooses the moral high ground. This is not for me. I'm not going to go ahead and, how could I've served your husband for so long. How could I betray his trust? I'm not interested. I'm not doing this. She strips down Yosef. He's not wearing clothing. He's standing in front of this woman, the head of the house, and he says, I'm out of here. Right? I'm out of here. And what happens? She calls the police, has him arrested, and he's in jail again. In jail again. He's locked up. Brothers lock him up first, throw him into a pit. Now he's locked up again in a proper cell in a dungeon of Egypt. Okay? And he finds these 2 guys there. These are the king's royal baker and butler, and they're having dreams in jail. And two people, again, two dreams. Okay, interesting, right? Yosef has two dreams. Now he has two guys, each one a separate dream, but really two dreams over there, one about life, one about death. And now, in this week's parasha, it begins telling us the story of Yosef again. But it starts with Paro. Now, this is important. We need to start with Paro because Paro is the most powerful man in the world at the time. Egypt is the superpower. They are the rulers, leaders, and everything in technology. They are highest level ancient civilization. They are running the show. Okay? They have everything going down for them. They're doing very, very well. Pasuk tells us that he has a dream with what? Paro standing on the riverbanks. Why? The riverbanks of Egypt was the power. The Nile god, they believed in that. Like, think about it. You're living in a world where people had to find water, drawing water. We learned before in the parashat earlier that Abraham is searching for wells and digging wells. Yitzchak is digging wells. Wells were a big deal. And now they have water. They're irrigating. They figured out how to irrigate their land. They are flush with food, greenery. Egypt is gorgeous. Okay, Paro is standing over this place. He believes he's bigger than God. He's bigger than the gods of the river. And we know how the dream goes. He has these dreams where he sees, these 7 cows coming out of the Nile. They were very beautiful and robust and fleshy. And then another 7 cows come out of the river, and they're very lean and they're very sickly. And these 7 sickly, emaciated cows end up devouring the fleshy, large cows. And then he has another one with the ears of grain, healthy ones swallowed by the unhealthy ones. And now he is plagued, Paro, by these dreams, and he's looking for an interpreter. Okay? It says, Vehi baboker tipa'em rucho v'yishlach v'yikra kol chartumei Mitzrayim. He calls v'kol chochmeha. He calls all of the wise men. He reaches out to all of the dream interpreters, everyone, and you know what he can't find? He cannot find anyone. V'saper Paro lahem et cholamo. He tells them their dream. Ve'en poter otam leParo, and no one can interpret them to Paro. Why? Because Paro was aware of the interpretation. So if he was aware of the interpretation, then why did he need to go ahead and ask the interpreters and all these people? Because the interpretation of the dream was the easy part. That was the easy part. If you know that your dream means you're going to have 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine, what's the next question you want answered? The next question is going to be, how do I solve this? How do I save my people? Right? How do I save everyone from this horrible news? That's what he was really looking for. But no one gave him the right interpretation. No one could explain it to him. Paro katsaf the Sar Mashkim. The Sar Mashkim, this is the same guy that was there with Yosef in the jail, and he says, I remember my sins. I was in jail. Paro katsaf elavadavi tenoti b'mishmar beit sar hatabachim oti v'et sar ha'afim. Remember, I was put in jail. Yeah, v'nechlam chalom b'layla ha'achad. We both had dreams. V'hu ha'ish kepitron cholomo chalmenu. This guy over there, he was the dream interpreter. He's the guy that interpreted our dreams. And he's the guy that explains why I'm here standing before you today. Now this is a very, very interesting pasuk. We're in pasuk Yud Aleph. It says, Ish kepitaron cholamo chalamnu. Right? And each one according to the interpretation of his dream we dreamt. Okay? The Gemara tells us in the Gemara Brachot, that a dream's interpretation is very much a reflection of the interpreter's interpretation. Which means, if Yosef would have interpreted the dreams differently, different outcome. But he interprets it exactly how he sees the dream. Okay? And therefore, when you're having a dream, let's just talk about dreams for a minute. Where do dreams come from? Okay, so spiritually speaking, dreams are the way I understand them are like this. Okay? This is based on the Ramchal. He says that our physical bodies are animated by our souls. Neshama is in our body. The neshama is the highest aspect of the soul, and it needs to recharge. It needs to leave the physical world and needs to reconnect to the spiritual plane, its real source. This explains why we sleep. And in that place, when this soul, this neshama, goes up into heaven, it comes in contact with other pieces of information. This is why sometimes you could go to sleep and wake up with a tremendous amount of inspiration, feeling of knowing something new. The neshama brings it back down, okay? And now you have access to this information. Okay, the problem is that when it comes down back into this world, it gets, I guess, tainted with other types of information, and now you have your subconscious and your higher conscious mind merging the information. You have these weird, crazy dreams. But somewhere in between all that, there is a power of truth. Okay, there's a power of something profound that is being expressed, and only someone who is refined can understand how to rip out the undesired impurities from the dream and figure out what those purities are. Yosef was that. What is that special system of being able to determine what is true and what is not true from a dream? It's about having an upstanding moral character. That's Yosef. Yosef could have easily said, I am not doing anything for this Potiphar or for the Sar Ophir, the Sar Mashkim. Instead, he could just serve himself, but that's not what he did. He could have been miserably sitting there in the dungeon with zero desire to leave, figure out a way of just sitting in his depression and giving up, but that's not who Yosef was. Okay? So Pasuk continues. Okay, so then Vayishlach Paro v'yikrat Yosef, they reach out to Yosef, and v'yiritzuhu min ha'bor. Okay, and they rushed him from the bor, the dungeon that he was in. V'yigalech v'yichalef simlotav v'yavo Paro. They shaved him, they changed his clothing, and he came to Paro. This idea that when you got to do something, zrizim makdimi lemitzvot, when you are asked by the king to do something, you do it quickly. You run. You don't walk. Okay, yeah, I'll do it later. No. When the king asks you to do something, you do it immediately. Okay, V'yomer Paro Yosef, Chalom chalamti, I have dreamt a dream. I had a dream. Right? Upoter enoto, and there is no interpreter for it. V'ani shamati, but I heard that you can't interpret dreams. Listen to what Yosef says. Okay? V'yan Yosef et Paro, le'mor bil'adi. He's saying, not I, but Elokim ya'aneh et shalom Paro. I will not be the one interpreting your dream, but God will interpret your dream. Now, so we know that this is a poetic way of speaking, but it was a foolish way of speaking because we have no idea how Paro would have responded to Yosef's, beautiful poetic response. Meaning, Paro could have said, well, if you're not my guy, then maybe I should send you back to the pit and find this God on my own. What do I need you for? And Yosef understood this. He was a strategist, right? But instead, he's like, no, this is not me. My whole life, he's coming out of a pit that he's been in for 14 years, okay? He's been pushed around the whole world, and he's still saying it's not me, it's Borei Olam. Which means, on another level, on a deeper level, he understands why he's in the pit. My friends, do you know why most people suffer? Do you know why most people are in pain? This is a very deep psychological truth. Ready? It's because they don't know why they're suffering. If you knew why you were going through the pain that you're going through right now, you wouldn't suffer. You wouldn't feel the pain. If you understood the reason for the circumstance, the challenge, you would not feel the pain. You would come up with another way of enduring through it. Yosef, every single day in that jail, like he was locked in a jail cell, understood that he is here because it's all part of God's plan. That means he never gave up hope. He never gave up hope. And what a powerful idea to be sharing right now during this time of the year, right? You have guys like Kanye West, Ye, saying he loves Hitler, and Jews are bad, and anti-Semitism on the rise. There was an attack a couple of days ago in Flatbush, where yeshiva boys were being heckled by these public school kids and whatnot. There's attacks all over the city. I get phone calls from students who are experiencing anti-Semitism in the workplace. They're not sure how to respond. They don't want to lose their job. This is a serious time we're living in. And it's so easy to say, I'm checking out. I'm not interested. Let's tuck away the Star of David. Let's take off the kippah and put it away. But that's not our response. Our response should be, I'm not in control here. God's in control. I do my due diligence. I'm not saying go to Harlem and be stupid. I'm not saying go to places where you could be I'm not saying Harlem is a dangerous place. I'm just saying that there are places that are dangerous. Harlem used to be a dangerous place. I'm not sure what it's like today. But if you're going into a dangerous neighborhood where there's lots of crime, then be smart about it. But Yosef, irrespective of the circumstances, he never gives up hope. He believes in the dream. The miracle of Hanukkah is exactly this idea. The Maccabees should have given up hope. There's no way the Jews had any ability of chiseling through the Greek army. It's like saying like Israel today would win a war against the U.S. Marines. It's just not going to happen. It's impossible. If Jews that built the state of Israel in 1947, the Holocaust survivors, 1948, are fighting against the Marines, there's no way we're going to win the war. It's impossible. Not going to happen. Yet somehow, Jews win a war against the Greeks. It's just miraculous. That is the miracle. We say that in Al Hanisim, that the few against the many, the weak against the strong. That is the real miracle. So then what's the question? Why is it that we light the Chanukiah? Right? You want to see our Chanukiah? That's our Chanukiah over there, in our Bet Knesset, right? That is where we light the Chanukiah. It's right there, but why do we light it? We light it because the rabbis recognize something profound, and it has to do with something that Yosef teaches us in this week's perasha, and that is that we could live life in the trees and completely being unable to see the forest. We could live in a reality where things are happening to us so clearly, but we're so distracted by the minutiae of our day. Right? They were winning a war. It took them 4 or 5 years, the Maccabees, to push out the Greeks. It didn't happen in 1 minute. But finally, when they found this little jug of oil, they finally got the Beit HaMikdash, and they were going to the Kodesh Kedoshim, they wanted to light. They found this little jug, and they lit it. And they saw those lights last for so long, for 8 days. That's when they realized the whole entire thing was a miracle. We didn't create parades where we're celebrating our military might, because they knew it wasn't them. They knew the whole thing was a miracle. Of course, there's something miraculous about the lights. But you and I, we don't get caught up in the big stuff. It's the small things. There's a machlok in the Gemara. Do we light all 8 candles at once and then decrease? Or we start 1 and increase? I'm not going to go into the machlok yet, right? But I love the idea that we posek, the halacha is that we do 1 and increase every single day. And the reason why we do that is simply because it's a reminder that the way in which we defeat our darkness and our ignorance is by doing small things every single day. Keep building on what you did before. Don't try to finish the project at once. Have small successes daily, over and over and over again, and you will become great. That is the Jewish dream. The Jewish dream is that we never give up. That till this day, at every single chuppah, I've married 220 couples, at every single chuppah I've ever been at, the chatan breaks the glass and he says, Tishkach Yimini. Why does he do that? Because even though, interestingly, we were in Israel during the Greek occupation, right? We were in Galut, living in Israel. It's a weird thing. What do you mean? We were in exile while we were in control of the land of Israel, right? We were in exile when the Greeks were there and the Jews were there. Even though the Maccabees, they won the small battle, they didn't win the war, because they came back later at the Romans, they kicked us out again. We were under occupation the whole entire time. So what ends up happening is that the Jews end up recognizing that they are in exile, living in the land of Israel. And the way in which we're going to free ourselves from our exile, which, by the way, even though we have the land of Israel today, we're still in exile, right? The world does not recognize our full sovereignty over the land of Israel, but that's going to change. You know why? Because we never gave up on the dream, just like Yosef never gave up on the dream. My friends, the way in which we achieve success in everything in our lives is by setting aside time, not just to dream about the vacation I'm going on, not to dream about the fancy watch that you want, but to dream about your life. What does it mean to be the best you? What are you doing to achieve your unique goals? How are you becoming a better father, husband, brother, son? What are you doing daily, like the Chanukiah, every single day, the small little things, to become a better and greater human being? That's what Pashat Miketz, because at the end, Miketz, at the end, you know what we are? All we are is our choices. Yosef, he had choices to make. Hate his brothers, end up having an affair with Potiphar's wife, ignoring these two guys, the Sarah Mashkim and the Ofet, but he engaged Ki'ilu as if there's nothing bad in the world. Everything is good. There's a plan at the end, it'll always work out. At the end, all we are choices. I am not in control of the destination. I am in control of my journey right here, right now. That's what the Maccabees taught us 2,200 years ago, and certainly it's what Yosef was teaching us 3,800 years ago. 3,500 years ago, 3,300 years ago, a long time ago. The message is the same message today as it was way back when, ancient times. What are you doing today to to make sure your dream is alive? The big dream. Remember when you were younger, you had all these big hopes and then you just kind of gave up on them? Don't give up on them. I never give up on any of my dreams. Be'ezrat Hashem, I will fight till the very end to get everything that I want out of this planet, on a physical level and on a spiritual level. I don't give up. You ask my children, my family slogan is, the Ibragimovs, we never give up. We never give up on anything. Miketz is about Yosef having a dream and never giving up. So how did Paro know that Yosef was the guy? Because when he interprets his dream, he gives the solution. It's not enough that he had the interpretation. This guy had the solution to the problem, right? You don't have answers right now? Don't give up. Work through, clarify the dream. Ask yourselves, what do you need to do to make that dream alive? And if you keep thinking about it, if you keep dreaming about it, you will pull something down from the ether, from that spiritual plane, and you will walk away with an interpretation, but only on condition that you are someone that is working on refining yourself. Wishing you an amazing day of illumination and clarity. Hope that you and I are able to live in a world where we are anti-Semitic free. We could live in a world where we see Borei Olam coming down and telling to the world, these are my children, these are my people, why have you done this to them? Why have you done this to them? Give them back their land. Stop this nonsense. Yallah, let's make the world a better, greater place. You know where it starts? It starts with me and you and our dreams. Never give up on them. Shabbat Shalom Avarach. Happy Chanukah, everybody. Thank you so much for listening.